From the 22 News Plus studio, this is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of InFocus. I am your host, Patrick Berry. I'm very happy today to be joined across the desk by Massachusetts State Senator Joanne Comerford. Senator Comerford, thank you so very much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Patrick, thanks for having me on.
I'm glad you're here because I don't know a lot of what happens in your district. You have an enormous district. It is huge. You've got parts of Hampshire County, I would call them population hubs like Amherst, Northampton, even up to Greenfield. But then you've got Petersham and all these little smaller communities. But you need to make sure you represent all those different types. And if I recall correctly, you have I think it's the second largest senatorial district in the state. How do you get it done?
Well, look, first of all, I have a great team. I really do. And some of them are located here in Western Mass. Some are in Boston. But I will say, and we were talking about this briefly before we got going, it is the most beautiful district in the Commonwealth, I think, by far. And it's 5 in Hampshire, 5 in Worcester County, and then 15 in Franklin County.
Wow.
So you're right, it's vast. It's 787 square miles. And when you think about that combined with going back and forth to Boston, I spend a lot of time in my car. But, I have the best constituents. They are fierce. They're on the move for better lives for themselves and their families and their communities. And they want to hold me accountable for doing the very best for Western and North Central Massachusetts that I can.
So one of the questions I ask every politician who comes in to sit across the desk from me is, why? Why public life? Why politics? Especially in this day and age and we're very fortunate. I think in Massachusetts, there's a lot less animosity among politicians and constituents than other parts of the country. But it's still a bold move to put your life in the public spotlight. Why did you opt for elected office?
So you're right that in Massachusetts, we work together. House, Senate, we work together, Republican, Democrat. We are really doing everything we can, especially at a moment where the federal government's pretty darn divisive. We're doing everything we can in Massachusetts to stay focused and stay productive. But, I grew up in a house that believed in government.
Okay.
It believed that government can and should work, not that it always does, but it can and it should. And I spent a lot of my adult life on the outside of government, banging on people like me to do better.
Right.
Do better. Listen to your constituents. Be bolder. Be more unequivocal. Be fierce. And I thought to myself one day, what would happen, if I took what I believe in government, how to make it work in the best interest of everybody, and went inside and then tried to hold myself accountable to be accessible, transparent, productive. And it's been nothing but a joy.
It's funny. I love that story. And the reason is, I run into people all the time who complain constantly about our elected officials. And I said, what you should do? Take out papers and run. Well, I don't have the time for that. But I applaud you for doing that, for sitting back, prior to your public life and saying, you need to do better. You know what? No, I'm going to do that.
I should do better.
Exactly.
I want to do better. And I've always loved the state. I've worked at the local, national, some international and state level in my career, but I've always loved the state. It's immediate. You can really make a difference in people's lives. You can help individual people and families. And, in a state like Massachusetts with a $60+ billion budget, there's lots of impact we can have together.
And as Tip O'Neill said, real politics is local politics.
Every single thing is a kitchen table.
And we're very fortunate, even though, from where you are in your district in the northern part of the Connecticut River Valley to Boston is a long drive. But we're still a small state. It's still easy to get around to all of the districts, no matter whether you're in Shelburne Falls or whether you're in Bourne on the Cape. Take your pick.
Yeah. And my colleagues in the Senate, 39 other people represent their places in the Commonwealth. So it's my job to say, hey, this is our 25 cities and towns. This is what we need.
Right.
This is what we have to offer. what do you have going on the Cape, or the North Shore, the South Shore?
Right.
How
That's
can
a
we
very
partner?
good question.
Yeah.
So what do you have going on? What are some of your, I guess, the reasons you ran, that some of your key platforms that you really want to see the Commonwealth of Massachusetts do better with?
So the folks I represent care a lot about education, access to excellent public education. They care about healthcare, and they care about the environment. They also care about economic development, right? Infrastructure development, opportunity here in the region. They also want a really functioning state house. They want us to be transparent, accountable. And so, I focus a lot in those areas. And when I was running, this is back in 2018 for the first time, people said, "Oh, Joe, oh, no way. These people in Boston, they don't listen to us. They don't care about us." And I thought,
life ends at 495.
right. And I thought, no way. I understood it, right? Because I'd worked in government. I'd worked on the outside pushing in. But I thought, no, we have to change the status quo for our region. We have to be listened to. We have to be wrestled with. We have to be, ourselves receiving a fair share, a fair shake from the state. So I spend a lot of time also on regional equity.
Okay. You must have great partnerships with the other legislators, both Senate and House here in Western Mass, because you all have to work together to create that louder voice west of 495.
Sure. And at the state, we grab hands with local officials and federal officials as well. So it's House, Senate here in the region, and then it's our local officials who have a really hard job, and it's our federal colleagues who also have a really hard job. And so it's really together in that context that we do the work. And at the state level, right, we are sometimes an in-between, helping to implement federal policy, helping to hear from local officials what's working and not working, and trying to make it better along that continuum.
Fantastic. We are up on our first commercial break. We have plenty more with Massachusetts State Senator Joe Comerford, so stay with us. We're back after this.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Welcome back, everyone, to this edition of In Focus. I am here with Massachusetts State Senator Joanne Comerford. She represents the district. How many communities?
25 cities and towns.
25 cities and towns in Hampshire, Franklin, and parts of Worcester County. A large geography of Massachusetts. But what's interesting is every one of you as senators or House representatives, it's the same number of people you represent, just the geography.
Absolutely, yeah. About 175, 180,000.
That's a lot
in the
of people.
Senate, in the state Senate.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and Franklin County is one of the poorest counties in the state versus some of the eastern districts, Eastern Commonwealth districts. How do you help your constituents who are some of the poorest in the state?
Yeah. So I focus a lot on affordability.
Okay.
I focus a lot on the kind of resources the state has to bring home to municipalities to help with the burden out here in Western Massachusetts and North Central Massachusetts. And I focus on opportunity. What do we have to grow our economy, to create jobs, to lift wages?
Right.
And all of that happens all at once. So I think about the programs for individuals, like the social benefit programs we care about, right? Food security, heating assistance, all the way to how much is the state paying for public education?
Okay.
How much is the state paying for something called payment in lieu of taxes?
Right.
How much is the state paying then on the infrastructure side for buses, for rail, for job creating hubs like Mass Hire, Hampshire Franklin? How are we getting resources in here to help people, communities, and the region? And all at the same time, we have to do all of that because that's the kind of lift all boats that we have to do.
And you're exactly right. The more education people have, the research has shown, the better off financially they are. May not be wealthy, but they're better off. You were a huge proponent of tuition-free community college. Mm-hmm. And there's something new out there called the Bright Act. Explain that to me.
Okay. So in the education space, we'll stay in higher education for a second. Really, the legislature and I'm proud of the work the Senate in particular has done, has leaned in massively. We agree with you that higher education is an equity engine. It's an economic engine. And so we've done a number of different things. We've lowered tuition, some free, right? So we have free community college. And in the community college space, we now have free what are called certificate courses.
Okay.
We're beginning with EMTs and paramedics to make those free, right? Open up the doors, help people get in on their own terms for a jumpstart, right? It's like a great personal trampoline. And then in the 4-year, and these are state universities like Westfield or the University of Massachusetts, like UMass Amherst, we're really investing in financial aid. So that right now, if you're a family in Massachusetts, and if your income is around $100,000, your combined family income, your kid can go for free, tuition fee, book supplies.
Wow.
That's not room and board.
Right.
But to UMass Amherst, to any of the state universities, and they're going to go completely free to every single community college. And that's Massachusetts saying, look, we know we're a knowledge state. This is we're in the knowledge corridor here in Western Massachusetts. We know this is one of our special sauces.
Massachusetts is on the leading edge of that across the country.
Absolutely, yeah.
Massachusetts is leading edge on a lot of things, but education is one of them.
Indeed. And in fact, because of what we've done in the legislature, we've just jumped up. We're in the top 10. I think we're 8 or 9 nationally in terms of opportunity to access excellent public higher education. You mentioned the BRIGHT Act. That's a piece, right? That's the physical infrastructure on our campuses.
Okay.
And that's a huge bond bill that's moving. I hope it's going to be signed in the next couple of months by the governor. And that'll infuse really much needed capital, right? So 21st century classrooms for our students going into public higher education.
You know, it's interesting. I read an article earlier today that Massachusetts ranks #1 for literacy for 8th graders in the country, which is fantastic because, again, research has shown if you fall behind as a youngster in reading, you fall behind for life. So that's great news for us as a state of education.
Totally. Now, in my district, in the 25 communities I represent, I believe, have some places to go with regard to education funding, right? We are right now not being served equitably in the place I represent for K-12 education funding. That is one of the areas that I spend a whole lot of time talking to the governor, the lieutenant governor, their administration, my colleagues in the legislature, because I think we need to shake up what are called the foundation budget formula, so that communities like I represent, rural or declining enrollment places, they get a fairer shake.
And it's smart.
This is 22 News.
The wrong button there. Sorry. It's smart to do that because being Franklin County and some of your communities being the poorest, that education will only get them out of that family cycle of generational poverty.
Absolutely. Yeah. Education is a buster out of, right? It's a buster out of trauma. It's a buster out of economic decline. It can be a population builder, all of those things, right? And we want businesses to come to Western and North Central Massachusetts. We want families, young families. We want young professionals to come. And to do that, we need an infrastructure. Education, and now we're talking really K-12 or pre-K through higher education. That is one of the main foundations that we can give our region. That's akin to things like other things in the space, right? Internet, water, sewer, roads, bridges, right? We need all of it to create the opportunity.
But is the State House listening? Is the senior leadership of the Commonwealth listening to what you're saying and the needs of your district?
I think, yes, they are. Again, we were talking earlier, right, about how Boston sometimes, what we hear out here in Western and North Central Mass is like, oh, those people, they don't care about us. They don't even know where we live. And, that
Get
is,
all those people vacation out here.
and they love it, right? They come here, the arts,
Right.
travel tourism, outdoor rec. But the truth is, we had to show them, and I don't do this alone, right? I do this with great colleagues. We had to show them the inequities.
Right.
We had to show them the way in which money was coming into our municipalities inequitably, or grant programs that didn't work, or the opportunities like microtransit for RTAs or free RTAs were really important, or that we needed more voices on boards and commissions, and we needed the state positions filled in Western Massachusetts. We had to show them all of that in order to be able to say to them, hey folks, it's just not shaken out equitably.
Right.
And we know we're 2 hours on a good day from Boston, but it doesn't matter. You wanted to governor 351 cities and towns. Here's how you do that.
Here's 25 of them that need help.
Yeah, here's how you do that. And you know what? I'll say my colleagues in the Senate believe deeply in regional equity. The governor, lieutenant governor, their administration believe in this, right? So we have to just join forces and actually not let up.
Absolutely. We are up on our second commercial break. There's more with Senator Joanne Comerford, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry. This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this edition of In Focus. I'm your host, Patrick Berry. We are here in the 22 News Plus studios. I'm very excited today to be joined across the desk by Massachusetts State Senator Joanne Comerford. Joe Comerford, thank you so very much for joining me. I appreciate it. You had talked about equality, equitable governing across all the, you look at, some of the more affluent communities in our state versus, some of the communities that you represent. And you mentioned that Governor Healy and her administration understand the need for equality among our communities.
And equity, right. Both.
So, we talked a little bit about education and economic. What beyond that will bring, parity among Franklin County and your district to other parts of the country?
So the state spends money in local communities a bunch of different ways. Some of it comes in directly, and that's in the form of what we talked about earlier, education spending, payment in lieu of taxes. That's for state-owned land, libraries, councils on aging, you name it. It comes in to local communities. It spends money another way by allowing municipalities and individuals, nonprofits to access grants. And then it comes in a third way with state programs, right? Like the Department of Transportation programs. We talked about earlier, rail or bus or bridge, road funding. And so all of those are driven by assumptions. And for too long, the assumptions that have driven, like, why would Northampton or Amherst get a certain amount of money? They haven't been looked at. And in fact, if you look at them...
Isn't the formula changing, though? Or is starting to change?
The education formula has started to change. Okay. But some of these other formulas are beginning to change. Like, for example, the Chapter 90 formula, right? So we said, hey, wait a minute. Chapter 90 comes out with this algorithm, this formula that is part miles, part people, and part economic development outcome, right? Well, we have the miles in Western and North Central Massachusetts. We don't have the people. And our economic outcome as a result of something
depends on the infrastructure.
Exactly. Right. And it depends on the economics of the place. So if you're in a rural place or a lower income place, your economic impact is going to be less. And we said, hello, we have the miles, but we're not getting an equitable share of Chapter 90. And so now 1/3 of Chapter 90 is coming out miles only.
Interesting.
So so it's really like you get into government, you roll up your sleeves and you look under every single rock and you say, what's under there? Who's making that decision? What's it based on? Is it going to be fair for the people I work for? And if it's not fair, let's fix it. Let's not fix it tomorrow. Right. Let's fix it right now.
Quickly. Well, we all know government operates in a glacial pace.
Well,
so fixing it right now,
sometimes. Well, but I'll tell you, I'm seeing things pick up, right?
Good.
Right now, we have a commission. The governor just put into place this commission to rethink how we value state-owned land, because there
Right.
as well, we are not getting our fair share. And I'll get to sit on that on behalf of the Senate.
Is there a lot of state-owned land in your district?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, our district is natural and working lands. That's one of the things that we give to the Commonwealth. We also steward clean water for Boston, right? But how are we getting paid for that work, that stewardship, that sacrifice, that service? That's a problem, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So every single one of these areas, whether it's the direct money to the municipality or grant programs, there was a municipal infrastructure grant. We call it the Municipal Vulnerability Program. That had assumptions, and the way the money was getting out, it didn't work for my communities. So we said to Energy and Environment, EEA, hey, gang, this doesn't work for us. They changed the program.
Okay.
That's what we have to do.
Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about transparency in our state government. I'm of the mindset that where we stand today in the mid-2020s, Massachusetts is much, much better than it was 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 years ago. But there's still a long way to go.
Sure.
One of the issues that came about because of a ballot initiative was an independent audit by the state auditor. But that's also built into our governing responsibilities. Educate me on that if you could.
It's a good question. So you're right. I want to start with what you just said. You are right that, for example, the Senate has an audit every year, and it's posted on the website. The auditor, I believe, was and is looking for something slightly different than what we would think of as a pretty thorough scrub of our finances. And I will say that, when the voters voted, what I heard them voting for was greater transparency, greater productivity, greater accountability, greater accessibility. And I agree with our voters asking us for that. So we were chatting earlier about a rule reform that happened in the legislature, and it's shaken things up in a good way. So the House and the Senate this session, so that's the 25-26 session, agreed on pretty substantial changes.
Oh, wow.
So every single vote in committee is now public. All testimony that comes to a committee.
And they weren't before?
Well, I mean, I gave out my votes, and many of my colleagues did, but not posted on the legislature's website. So right now, if you care about a bill in Massachusetts, you can go look on the malegislature.gov, figure out who voted for it and who voted against it.
Interesting.
Also, who's sending in testimony. That's also now you can find out who's for the bill.
So that the residents of the Commonwealth can see exactly how government is happening.
And who's influencing the things they care about. We also moved up our deadline. So last week was something called Joint Rule 10, which is a pretty archaic term. And that's when all bills have to be decided by. And so a whoosh of thousands of bills are out months earlier, which just gives them a longer lead time to get finished.
But Massachusetts, we're running short on time, but Massachusetts was recognized as having the lowest percentage of bills passed. I forget the numbers, but it was like 6% or something like that.
I don't know that source. Yeah. It's, it can be hard to quantify it, right? Because the way we've been passing bills in the Commonwealth are these sort of giant bills, like a budget or a bond bill, where there could be 15, 16, 18 pieces of policy in there. And so it's, when we think, we just passed that one thing, but it could be vast. It
encompasses a lot.
And so it is tricky. Do I think even with that, we could do better? Yes, I want to do better. I want to listen to my constituents who want this kind of greater churn in the people's interest, and I want to be part of that.
Fantastic. Senator Joanne Comerford, we are out of time, but I thank you so very much for joining me today.
A pleasure.
Hopefully the invitation is open to you to come back whenever you would like. Hopefully,
I'd love it.
See you here again.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Patrick.
very much.
This is 22 News in Focus with Patrick Berry.